Hello and welcome to the Visionary Chronicles. Thanks for being with me today. As always, again, I appreciate it. Got a great episode today, and it's pretty timely. So we're going to talk about, if you haven't heard enough of it, I'm going to talk to you about some artificial intelligence initiatives and things that visionary leaders are doing today with artificial intelligence and things that you can apply that will help you get it right in your organization or as a leader. So today we're talking about the subject is beyond the pilot, I call it. So it's why, and interestingly enough, 95% of all AI initiatives fail and how visionary leaders get it right. So we're going to talk about that today. And I don't think it's talked about enough when you talk about artificial intelligence. People talk about the benefit of artificial intelligence, which I am 1,000% for. But what they don't talk about is all the failures. And I've seen many with visionary leaders that I work with and just leaders of brands and companies that I work with. I always advocate for failure and risk-taking, but you need to have a strategy and plan, especially when it's something as disruptive as artificial intelligence. So today, again, the title is Beyond the Pilot. I felt that was a good title for today's podcast. We're going to talk about why AI initiatives fail and how you as a leader can get it right. So welcome back to the Visionary Chronicles, the podcast where we explore the minds and methods of really history's greatest visionary leaders and apply that to everyday life in both personally and professionally. So today we're going to tackle one of those, what I call again, another critical challenge that leaders are facing today is the staggering failure rate of AI initiatives. So we're going to see and talk about how we can get it right. So today's episode draws insights from my new book, The Visionary Leader, The Success Principles of the World's Greatest Visionaries, which is on sale now. And we'll connect timeless visionary leader principles with the urgent need to implement AI successfully in your organization. And I also make a quick announcement, Visionary Leader, thank you to those that purchased the Visionary Leader, whether the hard copy or the ebook. It is Amazon's #1 business leadership category, and that comes and goes, but certainly being able to achieve that, as I did with the Visionary brand, is quite an accomplishment, but it wasn't me, it was you. So I want to thank you for purchasing the book, but more importantly, for reaching out to me as to how you've applied that which I put into the book to your everyday, both personally and professionally. So thank you very much for that. So let me get to a sobering statistic that should make every leader pause a little bit. So there was a recent MIT study which found that 95% of generative AI pilots at companies fail. That's a pretty staggering statistic when you think about it. That's a batting average of 5%. So when we talk about this, let me repeat that 95%. So despite companies investing, it's going to be a much larger number year after year, $30 to $40 billion in AI. The vast majority, meaning 95% of these initiatives yield no measurable business return. But here's where it gets fascinating. It's not the technology that's failing, it's the leadership and how they apply AI that's failing. And if you look at it that way, the interpretation is actually good news, because while you can't always control technology, you can absolutely control how you lead this technology. So today we're going to dig a little bit deeper into this failure rate and how you as a leader can get it right. So today we're going to explore why most AI initiatives fail, and more importantly, how visionary leaders are getting it right. So you'll get an application of how the leaders that I profile in my book, as well as those leaders I'm working with Liquid Mind, how they are getting this AI application right. But let's get a picture of the magnitude of the problem right now. So let's put this AI failure, I say crisis, into perspective. In the first half of 2025 alone, AI startups raised over $44 billion more than all 2024 combined. Think about that. So it's a fast-moving train for sure. And Goldman Sachs actually estimates that the total investments in AI will soar to almost $200 billion by the end of this year. Pretty phenomenal numbers, and they're not going away anytime soon. So it's an astronomical amount of money being poured into AI. Yet here's the harsh reality of that money and the investment and the return. 95% of all generative AI pilots fail, as I mentioned, to deliver any measurable return, according to MIT's Project NANDA, N-A-N-D-A. And Rand Corporation reports failure rates of up to 80%, nearly double of that of non-AI IT projects. And that's just internal to their company. So 42% of AI initiatives are being scrapped entirely, according to S&P Global Research. So these are scales of magnitude here when you talk about failure rates that people have never seen before, and quite interestingly, don't talk about very often. And I felt we needed to talk about it because the expectation is that AI succeeds. Now, again, I'll reiterate, it's not the technology that's failing. It's the leadership execution that's failing, and that's what I'm talking about today. So companies cite cost overruns, data privacy concerns, security risk as primary obstacles to implementing AI. But this isn't just a technology problem, it's a leadership crisis because it's new to everybody. So when I talk to leaders in Liquid Mind and ones that we work with, brands, both global brands as well as small entrepreneurial brands, both levels, there's a lot of misunderstanding, let's put it, and high expectations as to what AI can do. But the misunderstandings come from the implementation and the execution of that strategy of AI. And it represents both a massive challenge and an enormous opportunity for visionary leaders who understand what's really going wrong. So let's talk about this for a minute. Why do AI projects fail? Let's take a look at some of the real causes of why it fails. And now, before we dig into some of the solutions, we need to understand the root causes of these failures. And this is where it gets really, interesting. Because the reason AI initiatives fail mirror exactly the mistakes non-visionary leaders make in any transformational effort. The first is there's really a learning gap problem. The core issue isn't the quality of AI models. It's researchers refer to as a learning gap for both tools and organizations. While these executives blame regulation, as I'd mentioned the cause and effect up earlier, or model performance, MIT suggests that these flawed enterprise integration is the root cause of these failures. Enterprise integration. Well, what is that? Think about some of the questions, or at least questions you should be asking before implementing artificial intelligence is the who, what, why, when, and where. Who's going to benefit from this? Why are you doing it? Where is it going? And how are you explaining it to your team? Because this enterprise integration is a major issue. I agree that it makes sense to implement AI initiatives, but it makes no sense if you yourself can't explain why you're doing it and how you're going to integrate it. So think about this. Generic tools like ChatGPT excel for individuals because they're flexible and they're adaptable. How these companies attempt to deploy AI in a scale, they often use brittle, static workflows that can't learn or adapt to their organizational context or culture. It's like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole and then wonder why it doesn't work. It's just a crazy methodology. And the second is misaligned expectations and poor integration, this is the root cause and reason for failure. Again, don't blame AI and the technology. It's misaligned expectations and poor integration. Here's why visionary thinking becomes so critical to the success of a technology like AI. Most companies are making poor decisions, not about which technology to use, but about how to integrate it into their operations. without having a clear direction and vision and step process to how to execute it. They're treating AI like a plug-and-play solution like we did back in the day on CRM, EDIs, whatever it happens to be. And ERP systems back in the day when they tried to plug them in and SAP went haywire as a result of that. So they're treating it like a plug-and-play solution rather than a transformational tool that can reimagine how work gets done on a day-to-day basis. And let me give you a few examples of what I see out there when I'm working with AI teams and working with leadership within these CPG brands. It's a pretty predictable pattern, and here's how it goes. They fail to prepare their organization for change, number one. They don't invest in learning capability that makes AI valuable, number two. Number three is they expect immediate ROI without building foundational capabilities, and then they implement disconnected use cases instead of coordinated strategies. Boom, 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 boom. All of these are typical in any organization. And there's also the visionary gap. And here's a foundational issue. Companies are focusing on present problem without a future vision. And they're asking a question. How can AI help us do what we're doing now faster? I get that all the time. And it's a ridiculous question. You have to understand why and how and when you're doing this before you even execute a strategy for AI inside of your organization. And they should be asking, how can AI enable us to do things we've never been able to do before? Interesting contrast. And nobody asked that question. This is the difference between operational thinking and visionary thinking. And let's talk about that visionary approach. How do these 5%, this 5% succeed? So I wanted to give you a few pointers here on how AI integration inside of your brand, your company, can succeed. And also point out where you're failing, but letting you know that you're not alone in your failures. Matter of fact, you're in the majority, unfortunately. So when we look at this 5%, what are they doing differently? I always question, how are visionary leaders turning AI from an expensive pilot program into a genuine, authentic, competitive advantage for their brand and their company? So let me break it down into some principles. I always love principles from the visionary leader. And if you haven't read the book, I address all of this inside of the Visionary Leader. I not only profile great visionary leaders from centuries, all the way back from Socrates to Gandhi to Abraham Lincoln to Henry Ford, Andrew Carnegie, all the way up to Steve Jobs and Elon Musk. And so these are broken down into principles. And the first one is start with vision, not technology. That's critical. Because what you need at the top of any type of disruption, and I've said this for every single podcast ad nauseum, you need a vision before you need technology. Technology is only as good as your ability to define a vision. Visionary leaders don't start with AI, they start with a compelling vision for their organization's future. Remember, from our previous episodes, visionary leaders articulate a clear and passionate vision that serves as the foundation for all visionary thinking. And here's how this applies to AI. And what you need to be asking is define where your organization needs to be in 3 to 5 years, not 6 months, not 3 to 5 months. And identify the capabilities you'll need that you don't have today. That's an interesting one because nobody asked that question. Only then, once you've answered those questions, can you ask, how can AI help us build those capabilities? You don't ask that first. You need to define your vision and then identify the capabilities that are going to achieve that vision. And then ensure that these AI initiatives align with your long-term vision. Not your strategy, not just short-term efficiency gains. That's a very critical one as well, is ask yourself, are you doing this just because everybody else is doing it or because it aligns with your long-term vision of where you want to take your brand or your company? Don't just do it because everybody else is. That isn't a strategy. This approach ensures that every AI investment contributes to the cohesive future of your company and brand, rather than creating this, what I call, patchwork of disconnected tools that don't work together. The second is understand the landscape before you build it. One of the core principles in the Visionary Leader, the success principles of the world's greatest visionaries, is to thoroughly understand the landscape. Visionary leaders stay informed about market trends, consumer needs, not wants. Identify the needs before the customer knows they need it, not their wants. They're not visionaries. They're not future thinkers. They're not future casters. And emerging technologies to identify gaps and disruptive opportunities. So for successful AI implementation, this really means conducting an in-depth analysis of where AI creates genuine competitive advantage in your industry. Understanding your customers' evolving needs, which is continually evolving, and how AI can address them. And also identifying the gaps between current capabilities and future requirements. The successful 5% aren't implementing AI because everyone else is. They're implementing it because they've identified specific strategic opportunities. Now, there's the difference between the 95 and a 5. I can tell you is 100% accurate. I ask that question when we're whiteboarding with these leaders of companies and brands. Well, why do you want to implement AI? A lot of them will come right out and say, because we feel we need it, because it's an evolving technology that everybody else is doing. I said, that's not a strategy. That's just a comment. I said, that's a recipe for failure. Identify how this is going to change your organization and where you're going with your brand or your company 3 to 5 years from now. And number 3 is build adaptive, learning capable system. Adaptive systems is critical because AI is adaptive. That's why they call it generative AI. Here's a critical insight from MIT research. Again, it says success hinges on adaptive, learning capable systems rather than static tools. I completely agree. This aligns perfectly with the visionary principle of embracing flexibility and adaptability in the book. Visionary leaders recognize that AI isn't a set it and forget it technology. The landscape of business and AI is really dynamic, and their ability to adjust thinking and strategies in response to changing conditions is critical to their success. Do you do this? If you don't, you need to. And what does that real world application look like when we talk about adaptive learning capable systems? There's 3 points here. One is you invest in AI systems that can learn from your organization's unique culture and context. Number 2 is you build feedback loops. And you have design workflows that evolve with AI and how it learns. Number 4 is you create a culture of innovation and experimentation. Remember the principles of Think Different from our previous episode. Visionary leaders drive sessions where idea generators can disrupt their industry without the fear of judgment. We talked about that in the last episode. They view failures as learning opportunities and encourage a culture that embraces experimentation. You have to do the same. It's critical to your success. So this is 4 points that are critical for AI success, based off of creating a culture of innovation and experimentation. One is foster an environment where teams can test AI applications without the fear of failure. Don't get pissed off when they fail. Reward them, because they've taken you a step closer to executing your AI vision and how it's going to be incorporated into your long-term strategy. Reward innovation. Creative problem solving with AI tools. Start small with pilot projects, but design them to scale if they're working. View setbacks as data points that inform you for better implementation going forward. So these are pieces of the creating a culture of innovation and experimentation. And the number 5 is, empower your teams and gain buy-in from them. This is one of the most overlooked aspects of successful AI implementation is often not getting buy-in from your teams and just forcing it down their throat. You don't want that. So how do visionary leaders excel to get buy-in? They assemble diverse, passionate teams that align with the vision. They empower teams by giving them the autonomy and the freedom in the AI application process itself. They communicate clearly about how AI will enhance rather than replace human capabilities. You need to be able to communicate effectively as to what your strategy is and how it's going to impact them to be more efficient and more effective and not eliminated. So invest in training and skill development so teams can work effectively with AI. The failure of 95% of AI pilots comes down to this. Organizations implement the technology but forget to bring their people along on that journey. Think about that. You can't implement this in a silo. You need to have your team supplemented in your process for AI integration in order for it to succeed. And number 6 is measure what matters and iterate. Visionary leaders establish measurable KPIs to avoid innovation failures. They look for honest, foundational, and authentic feedback and regularly assess their performance against these indicators. So let's look at, for AI implementation as an example, what does this mean? I'll give you 4 points here. What it means is define clear success metrics before launching an AI initiative. If you don't have a measure, you don't know what success looks like. Number 2 is create feedback mechanisms to capture what's working and what isn't. Be willing to pivot or shut down initiatives that aren't delivering value. Get the hell out. Go with what's working and eliminate that which is not. And have the strength to get rid of it. Too many people hang on too long and they don't make a move. So celebrate and scale successes rapidly, immediately. If you delay, it isn't authentic. The successful 5% are ruthlessly focused on measurable business impact, not vanity metrics like AI tools deployed or employees using AI. These are all BS statistics that nobody should care about. If you do, get rid of those metrics and reward failure and give the freedom to execute AI initiatives that are working and get rid of the ones that are not. So what does this practical framework look like? From pilot to performance, what does this look like? So let me give you a practical framework for moving beyond failed pilots to successful AI implementation. This really draws directly from the observe, define, create principle in the Visionary Leader book. Number 1 is observe. Study your organization's workflow and identify bottlenecks along the way. Number 2 is understand where human expertise is essential versus where automation adds value, meaning complementary. I call it complementary effectiveness. Listen to your teams about their pain points and needs and find a solution through AI or collaborative efforts of the functional groups themselves. Number 4 is monitor emerging AI capabilities and trends to see how you can integrate those with what you're currently working on to make it more efficient or effective or adaptable. Number 2, define. Articulate a clear vision on how AI will transform your organization. Set clear, specific, measurable objectives for AI initiatives. Number 3 is create a roadmap that connects current pilots to future capabilities. And the third piece is create. 4 points here. First, start with high impact, achievable projects that align with your vision. Number 2 is invest in the infrastructure and talent needed to support AI at scale. If you don't have the tools and resources, you're going to fail. And it's okay to fail, but don't set yourself up for it. You need to have a team that will fail, but have the passion around the vision and the execution of the AI programs to succeed. Create feedback loops. Scale successes and learn from failures quickly. So let's take a look at real world success. Hey, when you've got all this in place, what does it look like from a reality perspective? So let me paint you a picture of what success looks like. Well, 95% of companies are failing. The 5% who get it right aren't just surviving, by the way, they're thriving. Take Lumen Technology, which projects $50 million in annual savings from AI tools. They're not achieving this by deploying ChatGPT enterprise-wide and hoping for the best. They're doing it by a couple measures. Let me give you 4. They align AI implementation with strategic business goals. Number 2, they invest in employee training and change management. Number 3, they're measuring business impact regularly and consistently and providing that feedback to the executive team and the team members themselves. And they are constantly iterating based on real-world performance, meaning they're adaptive and flexible. This is visionary leadership in action with tangible results set through a vision. Using AI not to do the same things faster, but to fundamentally transform what's possible in their organization. And what does this leadership imperative with AI look like? It is imperative that you implement AI. Get that. But the leadership imperative is bigger. And here's what every leader needs to understand is the AI revolution isn't about technology, it's about leadership. And the same principles that enable visionary leaders to implement any transformational initiative successfully apply it directly to AI. They don't care if it's technology, they know it's bred through leadership. The 95% failure rate isn't a technology problem, it's a leadership problem, as I'd mentioned earlier. And that means it is solvable, which is the good news. The bad news is too many leaders don't take this advice. Visionary leaders are bridging the gap between imagination and reality by seamlessly integrating AI with strategic thinking, effective communication, and decisive action. They're not just implementing AI tools, they possess the leadership insight to guide their teams towards successfully realizing AI's potential, leaving a lasting impact on organizations and the industries that they serve and disrupting wherever they can. So, kind of in conclusion here, we've gone through a lot, and I tell you, AI can be confusing, it can be hard to implement, it can be hard to understand, it can be hard to integrate into your teams. I get all that. But you got a choice before you today. Every leader faces a choice. You can join that 95% who treat AI as a technological problem, implementing pilots that fail, wasted resources, ultimately achieving no measurable return whatsoever. Or you can join the 5% who treat AI as a leadership opportunity. You align it with your vision, you build adaptive capabilities, you empower your teams, and you create a sustainable competitive advantage. The principles that distinguish between these two groups, they're not new. They're the same principles that have always separated visionary leaders from operational managers. And I lay this out in the book. And it's amazing how consistently great visionary leaders are and how few people take their advice. So starting with a compelling vision rather than tactical solutions is your first point. You understand the landscape before taking action, and you build adaptable learning organizations. You empower your teams, and you gain buy-in from them. And you measure what matters, and you iterate relentlessly. So these are all points you've got a choice on. And I would highly recommend, number one, again, remember it's not the technology, it's the leadership, the strategy, the vision, and the stepped process that you need to take in order to be successful. Be part of the 5%, not the 95%. So some of the closing thoughts I have off the podcast today is, please consider where your organization stands on the spectrum of failure. Are you treating AI as a technology implementation or a leadership transformation? Are you focused on pilots or on building capabilities to deliver lasting value to your brand or your company? And I'll tell you, the good news really is that you don't have to figure this out alone. The principles and the visionary leader, the success principles of the world's greatest visionaries, will provide a roadmap for successfully navigating any transformation, including AI. So remember, 95% of AI initiatives may be failing, but that doesn't mean that there's an enormous opportunity. That just means that there's an enormous opportunity for these leaders to get it right. The future belongs not to the organizations with the most AI tools, but to the visionary leaders who know how to align AI with a purpose, a strategy, and human capability and increase effectiveness. So here's a challenge I have, and I love throwing these out because I get such great feedback on these. And here's a challenge I have for this week. Take one AI initiative in your organization or one you're considering and apply the observe, define, create framework to it. Don't ask what AI tool should we deploy. Instead, ask, what have we observed about our needs and capabilities, number one? Number two, what future are we defining and working toward? And number three question is, how can we create adaptive systems that deliver measurable value to our brand or company? And if you're serious about moving from 95 to the 5, start thinking like a visionary leader. Start with a vision, not technology. Start with strategy, not tools. Start with people, not processes. So again, for more insights on visionary leadership and successfully navigating this AI map and transforming your world and your journey along the way, again, the Visionary Leader is available for sale now, and we do address these issues. And next week on the Visionary Chronicles, we'll explore how to build AI-augmented teams where humans and artificial intelligence work together to achieve what neither could accomplish alone. And that's really what it's all about. Non-threatening, increased effectiveness with a vision and technology that complements what they do. So until then, observe, define, create, and remember that the best AI strategy starts with great leadership. And if this episode resonated with you, I encourage you to grab a copy of The Visionary Leader, The Success Principles of the World's Greatest Visionary. It's available now wherever books are sold. And as a reward or whatever it happens to be, we've gotten some great feedback on this. If you don't want the hard copy, we're keeping the ebook at $199. We've done extremely well at $199. So, and people love the fact that they can get access to the book, and it also spreads the word much, much faster. So the book is really a culmination of decades of research, experiences, real-world insights into what makes leaders like Steve Jobs, Leonardo da Vinci, Elon Musk truly visionary. And really, your support means the world. And your purchase goes a long way in helping us spread the vision even further. Not for me personally, and I truly mean that. For me, it's important that we get the word out to people that need, either personally or professionally, need to hear these strategies that we're talking about with the Visionary Leader and on the Visionary Chronicles. I get so frustrated with all the junk that's out there today that people listen to and waste their time on. If you want to be a truly visionary leader, that's why we're here. So the Visionary Chronicles, where the future is created by those bold enough to shape it. Until next time, keep innovating, keep leading, and keep shaping the future. And again, thank you for your continued support, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. Stay true, stay authentic, be different, and be great, and enjoy the journey along the way.